Well, you think you're safe in the hospital, but a Lincoln County woman says she was a patient when her doctor raped her. He's charged with that crime, and we did some digging and found a trail of women who have complained to authorities about this doctor for decades.
This morning, a lawyer for the doctor made an unusual move, filing a slander suit against the alleged victim, claiming her story is all lies. We sat down with Gwen Zinn several weeks ago. She wanted to use her name and show her face because police have said there are other victims in this case. Gwen Zinn is a 53-year-old grandmother and mother of 5.
It's been extremely difficult. It's a nightmare continually. I don't have any peaceful days. I am in therapy.
She tells a story that had Lincolnton police detectives investigating for a year and a half before they brought charges.
This absolutely should not have ever happened. I mean, I was in a secure environment. I was in a place where you would think you could trust.
Zinn's story begins back in 1996 when she was 35. It was Memorial Day weekend. She went to the emergency room at what was then Lincoln Medical Center.
I've been very sick. I was nauseated, thrown up, dehydrated.
A Lincolnton OBGYN, Dr. John Marshall, was assigned her care. But according to court documents filed in connection with criminal charges, Marshall told detectives the hospital had him on probation at the time, so he had to provide a second doctor to shadow him.
I wasn't fully conscious, I guess, when they placed me on the bed. But when I came to, I can't remember moving my head or just moving my eyes, but I could see the older doctor to the left of me, and he was doing what he spoke to me, and he said he was doing a breast exam. And when I could look down to the bottom of me, I felt pressure. And John Marshall was penetrating me. He was raping me.
And you remember this clearly?
I remember it very clearly.
She says she told her now ex-husband about what happened.
I said to him, something happened to me in there. I was raped. I know this doctor raped me.
Her then husband discouraged her from doing anything.
He just kept convincing me that no one would believe me, that I had had a shower, that I had erased any kind of DNA evidence, and that we should just leave things alone. At that point, I shut down. I completely shut down and just tried to forget it.
She did, until last year, when she was flipping through the yellow pages and came across Dr. Marshall's name.
Everything at that moment, it was like a mad rush coming through my mind, and everything came rushing back. Everything was just right there in my face as to what he had done to me.
This time, she went right to police. And after an 18-month investigation, police charged Marshall with raping Gwen Zinn, and a grand jury indicted him. The other doctor, the required shadow, has since died.
The detectives investigated for a year and a half, and in a situation where you're talking about 17 years elapsing, obviously no DNA evidence, the fact that they felt strongly enough to push for charges after that long, normally detectives are not going to bring charges that long after the fact.
I blame myself for not coming forward and not being a stronger woman.
We went through pages and pages of court documents in Gwen Zinn's case, including the probable cause affidavit that reveals others have spoken to police about Dr. Marshall's behavior. There's a young woman who says she was at her first gynecological exam when Dr. Marshall touched her and himself inappropriately. There's also a mother who says at her preteen daughter's first gynecological exam, she was in the room when Dr. Marshall touched her daughter in an inappropriate way, and that he was enjoying this in a sexually gratifying way for himself. We also tracked down Danielle Marlowe, who worked as Marshall's receptionist.
Were you surprised by the allegations against him?
Not at all. No.
Why not?
Because of the way he treated me. I would be working at the desk, and he would walk up behind me, and he would rub my shoulders like massage, and I would say, please remove your hands from my shoulders, and he'd say, oh, I'm sorry. Does that make you feel uncomfortable? I'm like, yeah, it does. And then repeatedly, every day, he would do it again.
After she says he showed up at her house and let himself in uninvited.
I saw him coming up the driveway, and I went and hid in the bathroom.
She laid out those allegations in this complaint she filed with the medical board.
He really creeped me out to a point that I didn't go to work.
Board records show Dr. Marshall responded, saying, quote, his actions were not sexual advances, and he, quote, did not enter her home.
So my whole goal is to stop him, to make sure that he is never going to continue to hurt or touch another person.
In fact, North Carolina Medical Board records show Marshall took a leave from Lincoln Medical just a month after he treated Gwen, and the board temporarily suspended his license to practice medicine, granting him a temporary license a few months later that required a chaperone be present any time he examines a patient. Board records show, quote, the board had concerns about Dr. Marshall's manner of interacting with patients. That, quote, Dr. Marshall admits his manner of interacting with patients has at times made some of these patients uncomfortable. He was again reprimanded in 2003 and his license indefinitely suspended in 2011. Each time he faced different allegations, ranging from unprofessional conduct with a nurse, to not maintaining sufficient medical records, to not ensuring continuity of care for patients.
I'm Michelle with NBC Charlotte.
We tried to talk with Dr. Marshall at his home. He refused to open the door.
Just wanted to ask you about the allegations, give you a chance to talk with us.
No, ma'am.
You don't have anything to say? I know you're facing several charges.
What are you referring to, ma'am?
The rape allegations that you're charged with?
Right, no comment, ma'am.
But Gwen Zinn is grateful Marshall will have to answer to someone. He's currently awaiting trial.
Do you ever get past something like this?
I don't think so. I think I'll learn to cope. But it's always going to be hard to go into any kind of secured environment or any kind of place and feel safe.
This is the complaint against the alleged victim claiming slander. While the doctor's attorneys did not return our calls, their complaint states medical records from Zinn's stay in the hospital disprove her claims. Zinn's attorneys say she is standing by her story. The district attorney's office tells us they are currently considering additional charges against Marshall. The hospital, that is now owned by Carolina's healthcare systems, told us because there are legal proceedings, they could not comment on the case. Reporting for NBC Charlotte, I'm Michelle Bowden.